Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. My name is Frank Breen.
I'm Cody Decker.
And today we're going to be going over
The Way of Shadows.
a street urchin seeks an apprenticeship with one of the world's greatest assassins and finds himself caught in a political
Intrigue.
mystical assassins, witches, and ancient dark artifacts.
Yes, and this is by Brent Weeks. This is a fan recommendation from you on Discord, which we have, by the way.
Yes.
Super Kami Guru. And here's was their sales pitch, and they know me, and I can tell that they knew how to get me. Their sales pitch was, imagine following Guts as a teenager through Midland-esque streets, but he's more of a ninja assassin type with a Venom-style power. And that's how you get me into a story.
Yeah. No, great recommendation.
I was like the Way of Shadows. I'm like, that feels a little too like. I was worried I wasn't gonna like it. I fell in love with it within the first chapter.
I mean, the cover's pretty intense too.
Yeah,
the cover's really good. It kind of got me, and the description of it got me. Really, I love those kind of books. It's almost like Assassin's Creed kind of feel to it. Really good.
Yeah. Now this has an audiobook, but this also has graphic audio, which costs the same, 1 token. So I get if graphic audio is an option, I'm taking that option. I can't imagine, because I know from Deathlands that they cut stuff out. Yeah. But they left a lot of stuff in this one.
Yeah, and I would be interested in listening to the untheatrical aspect of it, just to see if I get a little bit different of it, because some things did rub me a little bit wrong, but
some of the any time I had like an issue, I was like, I assume graphic audio did something, or they're gonna tell me why that makes sense, because it did such a good job in the opening.
Yeah, and it does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like it.
Yeah,
we'll explain a little bit later.
I had a thing where it's like, there was a scene where I was like, I'm sorry, did they just not show that important character moment? Yeah. But like the opening, and this is why, chapter 1 is such an important thing in a book.
Yes.
Because it earned my trust so much. I was like, that seems odd, but I'm assuming you're going to justify that to me.
Yeah. No, it was I think it was, and you know what's kind of think about, we've not really done any really bad books where we had bad reviews.
No, we were gonna do a book, and I was like, I don't like this book. I'm changing it.
Yeah.
There was a book that I was like, no, I can't do it.
Mid-read, I get a text. Yeah, I started it. I'm moving to this book.
Yeah, we're gonna do another book instead. Yeah. Maybe we'll do because I was like, here's the thing: if it's that's a 10-hour commitment.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to do bad books yet.
Well, you put more into bad relationships. So but it's a pretty good book. It's multi-layered. Gets into politics and all sorts of things, but not to a point where it's boring. No,
because I know how you are with politics and fantasy. How did you feel about the way they handled it in this one?
I thought it was good. I think the second book.
Which you're already on the second.
I'm already on to the second book, but it kind of weaves a little bit different, but I liked it. It was pretty good. Like I said, it's almost like what it is. It's an assassin that he is intermingled in this whole political thing, and so it was really good.
And I cried a lot in this book.
Yeah, they were.
This was first of all, it's extremely tragic.
Yes.
I like all of the characters, so when anything bad happens, I remember distinctly I was driving and I gasped and I covered my mouth and I said no.
Yeah. Dude, yeah.
With what happens to a character, what a character says, the writing was so emotional and real. Yeah. I did see I saw some negative reviews talking specifically about they didn't like how because it's graphic audio, which means You know, where the book would mention she was crying while they were talking.
Yeah.
With graphic audio, you now get this person crying the
yes.
entire dialogue scene.
Yes.
And a lot of negative reviews were basically just saying, this is too much and it's pretty traumatic.
And I could see that in some of the aspects, especially in some of the fighting aspects, because you had this audio behind it of people punching each other, and then, you know, then the person talking, and I didn't know what to do. And it kind of gets overwhelming sometimes in those aspects, I think, for me. But some of, then other aspects, it totally adds to it. I mean, when they're walking through town and you hear people talking and stuff, and it just totally nails it. Your imagination is already there. You don't have to populate thoughts or anything.
And that's why I like graphic audio, especially.
Really
you are you are so good at visualizing things. You actually got the design right. When we covered Aeronauts Windlass, you got the design of the gauntlets that they described.
Yeah,
right.
and I just took the description and, just...
Whereas I was like, it's like a glove. That's all I got.
And even with you guys, if you guys are listening to something and you're like, man, I wonder what this would look like. I mean, if I have time, throw it out and I'll see if I could do concept stuff for it. Because I don't look online for any concept art for it. I just draw it, what I think that it was described like in the book, or vice versa. And then sometimes I'll go back and look at what other people have done, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, But back to the book.
Yeah. So characters, I loved all of them.
I did.
Action, I thought was very well executed. I liked when it started getting into the magic system.
Yeah.
They didn't, you get like my issue with the story is it does feel like it's just like a hard cut to this scene sometimes.
Yes.
Which I'm under the impression that's a graphic audio thing.
Yeah.
Because it feels out of place with the writing.
And sometimes you have things that it doesn't get old, but very like weapons and ways that he kills people and different poisons and they get descriptive, and I like it. It's not too overboard. And then like you said, then it'll just be like, okay, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, and it's either like, oh, I guess this author doesn't like transitions. That's supposed to be part of the experience, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
Or something's being cut out. Because the graphic audio is like 4 hours shorter.
Oh, really?
But a lot of that is because they don't have to say, oh, and then there were people talking and they wore
Yes,
this. You just get them doing it. So
yeah, and if you like I said, it's cool because they get into the assassins are what they call wet boys.
Which, in my opinion, not the best name to have to hear constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get it, but but I'm like, kind of their whole what they are and stuff. I kind of get it. I mean, to me, yes. I mean, it's kind of a weird name, and you look at it like wet boy, but what does that mean, right? But they do play on that in one part of the book with a prostitute, but that's a whole another story. You got to really listen to the book. But
which again, this has humor in it too.
It does, but not like slapstick stuff. It's just
people in this world
Correct.
have a sense of humor.
But what I loved about it is how they went into those things, because this guy is brutal. The main character is just it's so weird, a balance between his caring about things and then his brutality in just the way he is. And our book kind of starts off with this kid that you're talking about a timeline similar to our dark ages. So it's not like you have Medi-Cal and Medicare and child protection services. So you have a bunch
do not have that here.
Yeah, so you have a bunch of kids out on the street, and they have formed gangs, and they steal and different things like that, and have adults involved, and it starts off with this kid that is just in the mix of that, and has this friend of his that he's raised, and she gets assaulted by one of the other street kids. So, but he's too small where he's always getting beat up. He's always...
Yeah, and like his other friend will take the beatings for him.
Yeah.
And some awful stuff happens to
Some
his
very-
male friend too.
Very awful stuff.
This is one of the darkest stories. There's like 3 stories where I'm like, that's very dark, and I should probably tell people about that if I'm going to recommend it to them.
Yeah.
This is probably number 2 on that list.
But you also, as the book moves on, you'll understand it. You'll understand that those things drove him this way, and there's some crazy plot switches where you're like, wow.
Yeah, especially the ending hit me. I mean, that we're gonna have a hard spoiler for that, but it was I was extremely emotional about every aspect of the ending.
Yeah, and it's really cool. They go over of course it's a graphic audio, so the kid is uneducated, so he has that straight talking like this. Oh yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I think I'm gonna take that guy out. And then of course all the voices are like that, so you might struggle with kind of understanding him, maybe, because some people don't really understand those kind of accents, but they do a good job. I mean, he's really troubled. You could tell he's a good kid, and he really wants to just protect this girl that gets she gets cut up in her face and almost dies. And,
yeah, her name is Doll Girl, and she doesn't speak.
Yes.
And that scene specifically is what I think all the negative reviews are talking about, because it is the saddest scene I have experienced in a long time.
Yeah.
Because it is just, I think, a 20-minute scene of him talking to this person who's telling him, this is your fault, you should have stopped this.
Right.
And then just this like little girl crying. And barely, and like they mentioned, like, oh, her nose is broken, so like it's wheezing, and they capture all of that of just like this child slowly dying.
Yeah, and our main character isn't even really involved in that. I mean, everyone knows what a wet boy is. Everyone knows that they're mystical, kind of trained assassins, and they get further into the book where some of these wet boys are fused with a kind of mystical object, you'd say.
Yes, and this is what I believe the person was referring to as the Venom style.
Yes.
Power, which
some are light, some are dark.
Yeah, and this story is about the dark artifact.
Yeah.
But they mention like, oh yeah, there's other, like, it's not, these aren't like an evil ancient demon things.
And the main character, what's cool about it is they're like very like ninja-ish. I mean, they know how to change their look, and not with magic. A lot of these things are just their natural ability that they train to do.
Yeah, it's like one of them is like, oh, he has like shadow magic and can do illusions, but that only does so much, and you would want to avoid using it as much as possible.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, he could use it for this, but it'd be more smart to like just learn how to do disguises.
Right. And our main character, he actually had an artifact that he was bound to. But later on, we'll explain more of that. But our other character really wants to kind of have vengeance for his friend and learn to stand up for himself and not, be bullied and things. So he kind of finds this guy and wants to be his apprentice. And of course, he doesn't want to have an apprentice. And so basically tells him no, and then sends him on a little quest to see if he can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the quests aren't like, hey, why don't you go get that chicken and bring it back to me? It's, no, I need you to go kill that guy that cut up your friend, bring me back evidence, and if you come back with no evidence, I'm going to kill you. I mean, they're...
And I really like it when they go into it, and he's like, that assassin, Durzo. He's talking about it, and like, it is like, oh, is the kid here? He's like, you better have that ear, or I'm going to have to kill him. and it is just like it's like, are you serious? Like, I can't make idle threats. Like, I can't have it going out that, like I said, I would kill someone and I wouldn't. So, yes, unfortunately, I will kill that kid if he doesn't bring me proof.
And the way that he talks about life in general really is it's not really important. I mean, that's what makes him an assassin. Mm-hmm. But the way that he talks about it, you believe it. You're like, wow, where is this guy at? And that's what I really liked about this book, how the writer originally kind of just hints that there's something in him.
Yeah,
Just hints
because
at
you
it.
can tell that like that's not what he really thinks.
Right.
That's something he repeats to himself because like and as it goes on, and
Yeah.
you know, and like it's like, oh, this is your first like kill in this type of scenario. He's like, you're going to cry about this.
Yeah.
And you know, he's like, no, I'm not. He's like, no, you will. Don't do it around me. But and it's like he wouldn't say that if he didn't know.
Yeah.
So you know, it's not him being like, you're gonna cry because you're emotionally unstable. Like, you killed someone. This is something you're going to deal with.
And because,
He says it like a jerk, but
yeah, and because the assassin is merged with this artifact, they live longer. So he's a lot older, which I found kind of unique. That was kind of cool. You know, so our character actually finally gets accepted by him, and he starts training him, and that part's cool. It reminded me of like Batman or something, you know, has all these different weapons, and then he just like beats the hell out of the kid until he learns. Just beats him. And I was like, oh my goodness. And that part's tough because, like I said, just like there's parts where this author pulls off something that is like so not cliche, but just happens all the time.
I was thinking that too. It's like on the surface, this is a very cliche generic story.
Yes.
Because it is like, oh, he goes to the mentor says no, and then later he says yes.
Yes,
and it's like, oh, he did all. It pulls off everything so well.
It does.
It doesn't matter that like you can be like, oh yeah, oh so what? It's gonna be like this probably, but the way it pulls it off, you're gonna love it.
Oh yeah. And it's definitely up to measure.
There we go. He's drinking chemicals.
No, but it is because at first and believe it or not, I didn't really think about it until like halfway through the book. Then I was like, man, this story's been told like a zillion times. but he has a way of pulling it off where it's like you really I felt for that kid. The training and the bleeding over and over again, and him not giving up, and I was like, damn, dude.
Having to make a deal to where, like, you know, save my friend. Okay, if I do, you're never going to be able to talk to them.
Oh, yeah. He makes a deal, and he says, if you come with me and you train with me, everybody is dead to you. You can't see him. You can't do anything. And this guy, the only reason he did it was to protect this girl.
And like, if you ever talk to her.
And the way that his thing is I won't have a problem killing you. And I can kill you. No matter how good you get, I will kill you. He's been around hundreds of years longer than him. I will kill you. Mm-hmm. And
this is the world's greatest wet boy. So there's like
yeah,
a wet boy on its own is an unstoppable thing. He's the best one of those.
Yeah, and that's what's cool. I mean, like they talk about poisons and how they have antidotes for them and all those things, and that part was really intriguing to me. That was really cool. The different weapons, the different things that they do, and
I really liked when they go into the techniques where it's like, oh yeah, like we have like this thing where we poison each food, so like on its own, if you test it, you'll be fine.
Right, but all combined.
And that's how you can get away with like assassinating someone's like, well, if you combine these poisons, which the king will do, then he'll die.
And I thought that was he did really good at that. That part was really cool. And I didn't really expect all the rest to be as good, though. I thought, okay, that's cool. Kind of like everyone's seen it. Mm-hmm. But, you know, going into the stuff when they start going into what he does, and you're like, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, and this was a thing I had, and I'm going to try to figure out how to recreate it. But, like, there's a part, because there's magic tattoos and there's witches, and those are all different things. And there's a part where a character is like, oh, prove who you are by showing me your tattoo. And like graphic out, you get like orchestra music.
Yeah.
So when he like pulled out his tattoo, like there's like huge orchestra music playing, and I forgot to turn my radio off. So that Pink Floyd song, hey teacher, like the bass intro of that was playing, and cool. I was just like, oh yeah, like it was just this world where he like pulled out his tattoos and it just got all funky and trippy, because they mentioned cool. that the tattoos do look like visually crazy. So if I can recreate that, I'll play it at the end of this video, but I probably won't be able to.
That'd be cool.
But I was just like, I stood up straight, like I like fixed my posture. I liked it so much. Yeah, I mean, that ever happen? Where you like something so much you go like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes. I do that all the time. You know, someone says ice cream.
Oh, I didn't know that was an option.
But what I liked about this book is it's not. You would think a book like this kind of does the typical where it goes into the life of the assassin and then goes into the higher ups and the different things. It really stayed keel with that level on the most part, on that underground seedy level, from prostitutes to all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's where it gets dark, but in the way where it's like, well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And it's not shock humor dark, or not shock humor, shock value.
Yes.
Shock whatever.
No, yes, it's not shock value.
It is just like, well, they're homeless children.
Yeah.
And they'll be like,
and
this person, this is the best case they could have hoped for.
Right, and think of it as in, just back in the Middle Ages. I mean, that's the framework behind it. So, that type of timeline. So, it's who has money, who does not, people being used, people, having to do things to survive, and things like that, and the stories that intermingle along those choices. And it's hard to look at it, even though it's a fantasy book and there's magic and everything. There were parts in the book, especially the more graphic parts, where I thought, some of this stuff was a reality norm for real people.
Yeah.
On this planet. And I thought, to capture that made me kind of sad, because I was like, dude, that's freaking crazy.
That's one of those things where it's like, anytime I see the criticism for anything being like, oh, it's just shock value. It's like, oh, well, is that beyond what happens in the real world?
Yeah, and shock value, shock value is totally different. I look at shock value as, you have comedians, you have other people that might just say, the F word or all these different things, and it has nothing to do with their comedy. It has to do with the fact that it's a shock value.
And this will get a reaction.
And it will get a reaction, but then you have people like, I don't know, who was it? Was it Cedric or there was another big comedian that people were amazed that he never cussed in his shows, but he was really funny.
Brian
Sinbad.
Regan. Oh, Sinbad too?
Sinbad, the same thing. So I think shock value, I'm not saying it's bad. There's a place for it, because, I mean, it truly does what it's supposed to do. But to say that it's shock value just because it expresses something in this book, I don't think it is. I think what it did in this book is it hit home. It kind of set the reality of where they were at, which then implanted those characters in a more believable world. And I think that's so. If you put that on a coffee mug, if you're gonna come at us about shock value, yeah, I totally agree. You nailed it. Yeah, because without those scenes, then you would have had a very weak understanding of that world. You have very weak understanding of the characters, and then it would be so cliche, just like everything else, and you would actually not read it. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at things not just because it shocked you. Which I get it, but it's not meant just to shock you. It's meant
is that a part of?
It's meant to stabilize the universe that you're reading. In my opinion,
yes. Which, by the way, I enjoyed every single character.
I did,
and I do harass my roommates by telling them scenes from books. And this is one of the ones, because there was like a side character who was like a queen of like not even the kingdom we're in. The queen of another kingdom, and then she tells her backstory, and like I thought that was such a beautiful, sad, tragic story. Yeah. And we'll get to it, but like every character has like, like the prostitute, like maiden, the whatever you call those, she goes into her character and the way she talks, and there's not a single person in it that I'm not like, that was such a good character. Yeah, and it's funny because it then again, framing into that time frame, pretty much everyone's stories has tragedy in it, but that's what makes those characters the way they are. And so for me, I bought Mama,
whatever the prostitute.
Mama K.
Mama
Yeah,
K.
that's her name.
I bought her character. I bought his character. I bought everyone's character because I mean, like you could say that we all have baggage, and you write a book on it, and write about all of us, and everyone has baggage. You could say that book has too much baggage, but at the time that they're kind of predicting, no, not really. I mean, the only ones that didn't have terrible things happen to them were, kings, queens, people in that area. And that's not what this is about. I mean, it is in a way, but it's kind of about, dark and, people that do not have and the people that have. And so, I mean, I think he does a great job at it. I really do.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters, too, was called Logan, who, you just introduced to him being like, oh, yeah, people like him. And then, like, I believed it. It wasn't that thing where people are like, oh, this is a very popular character. And then, like, you don't see why they're popular. But with this guy, I was like, oh, yeah. Like, I don't think it's a spoiler to talk about him, like, fighting with the guards. Like, training fighting. And he would usually win.
Yes.
And then someone's just like, I mean, they're letting you win.
Yeah, because he's a little jerk.
Because they like you so much.
Yeah.
They're letting you win. And like there's just like he like looks at the guards and the guards are kind of like, yeah, like they're like embarrassed.
Yeah.
But it is just like, yeah, they were like, these are just your friends, and they're like, we're not gonna like. Yeah. But then he's like, you can't do this because also I'm training to fight. So
yeah, but what's funny is you look at that character and how whether he did it on purpose or not, or built off of that. That's a pivotal point in his character on how he becomes kind of like this douchish guy. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, it totally. I mean, when later on I'm going, oh well, that's why.
Yeah, there's not like.
I mean, really good.
There's like two genuinely evil people in this.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of gray on people.
On
doing things that they have to do, but they don't want to do.
Yeah,
which are evil.
The God Emperor from like this other kingdom who uses like magic to mind control people, and then he has like a bunch of children that he has via the mind control thing, and it is like all of his children are trying to like prove themselves, and like they do like very horrible things. You get like cannibalism start happening.
Oh yeah,
and then like towards the end, there's this thing where it's like the most disturbing prison I've ever seen.
Oh, they go into book 2 on that too.
Okay, because I was like disgusted and like horrified.
You'll be more horrified in book 2.
Okay.
They go into like, I'm going, okay, that's brutal, and not in a gross way. It just the way I think the author does a great job in creating a visual for you. And with the prison in aspect, it's not like where you have in some books. It's like, oh, here's this prison, here's how it is. It's funny, and I don't know if it's in the first book or the second book, but they're explaining how the workers purposely carved out this and carved out that, and that it's this long ramp going down, and it looks like you're entering, this mouth, and it has teeth on the roof, and it's out of black stone, and you're entering down this thing's throat, and it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense. It is.
Yeah, and there was a character who like I got like 30 seconds of them, and I was like, I like that guy. It's like terrible. So I was like, no, not him. Like the writing is so good that like I would fall in love with characters almost immediately.
Yeah, and it's funny because I would love this style of writing in him writing something else. I mean, I think he could pull off his writing not just fantasy but other things, because the way that he develops characters, I mean, just great.
And I mean, yeah, this is a guy I'll be following. This is now an author that I'm like, what did they write? Let me check that out.
Yeah, really good. And he's very good also at you always think of these kind of books, like movies like Excalibur and all these different things, and especially when it comes to like fantasy stuff like this, and you have video games like Assassin's Creed and all that, where there's this in-depth layered political story involved in it, and you don't miss out on this. It has the same, you know, but it's not cliche old, or you just don't want to hear it. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, because usually when they do get political, you also get characterization from,
Correct.
and that's more of like, because I'm like, oh, I know like that queen's like tragic backstory now.
Yeah.
So when they go into the politics, now I'm like rooting for like these like love triangles that I know about, and
Yes, yes.
now I'm like, oh, well now they can,
Yeah.
and some person's like, oh, now this can happen. I was like, yeah, now you can be together.
Yeah.
Like
And that was really good.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I think that well, one of the challenges that you might have, and I think that's with graphic audio, and this is, to me, it wasn't a book that I could just do the dishes with.
yeah. Yeah.
It's not a book that I could just, do something else and kind of pay attention. Because then with the graphic audio, all of a sudden they're somewhere else. And I'm like, oh, how the hell, what happened? Did I miss something? So with this book, I stopped doing other things, and I would just, do something that, of course, I could mainly pay attention to it.
Yeah, this is something where it's like, if you're going to like go on a walk, go on a
Yes.
long drive,
Yes.
just like go to the beach or something. It's not something you get to like,
Watch TV with your wife,
yeah.
and then every once in a while you go, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, what is this, Euphoria? Yeah, that's great. I love Euphoria. I'm just kidding. No, these aren't my headphones. No, the headphones are off. I just like wearing
Let's
them.
get the secret little headphones, put them in there, and then you just every once in a while say yes, yes.
Oh yeah, no, yeah,
Oh no, yes, in a minute.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Wow.
but back to fantasy. So yeah, I think he does. I think he does a great job. I think it's. I didn't know what I was gonna feel for the book. I love the cover, but most of the time that doesn't do it for me. And I really didn't know how I was gonna really like it. So, but I did. And you guys know sometimes I got to give books 2-3 times for me to eventually go, yeah, it was pretty good. But this one had me kind of right away, and part of it was that raw.
Yeah.
They're just throwing you right into the mix.
I mean, that beginning, I just like he's crawling through like this swampy mud, and it's like, oh, that's this snake, and it could kill me instantly, but I need to steal this person. Oh
Yeah.
no, now they're being attacked by this other group, and like you see like a sword like pierce through the floor he was crawling under.
Yeah.
And it's like, and for introducing that world, I thought that was perfect.
Great. Yeah, it was so good. It was so good. And like I said, it's this book spans pretty much a whole lifetime, I would say. Almost a whole lifetime. So, your main character is young when he trains, and it's kind of like Yoda, kind of like Jedi. He's actually a little too old to do it, but he does it anyway. Our main character, Assassin, he's kind of really good friends with a prostitute madam that runs her own brothels. And
Which, by the way, there's a scene where they get into a fight, and it felt so real.
yeah.
They say like the fight they get into is totally this thing of like, this comes up every time they fight,
Yeah.
and they know each other enough to know how to hurt each other.
Yes. And what's interesting is that the main prostitute, I don't think this is a spoiler. So the assassin, you find out like one of his kind of weaknesses is that he did kind of fall in love with this girl,
Yeah.
which is the prostitute's sister, and chose to let her die.
Because people took her hostage and said, you can go after your
Yes.
target and get this item, this
Yes.
treasure,
Yes.
or we'll kill your wife or
Right.
girlfriend.
And that's one of the reasons they don't do that, because they don't want to have any of that leverage or things like that.
And that's why he's like,
Yeah, let her
you
die.
find that after you this guy who's now, he's got a new name now. The kid's name is now Kyler.
Yeah.
And it is, he was like, you can't have any romantic connection. You can have fun all you want, but you can't be in love.
Yes. Yes.
And it is because because he did and it went bad.
Yeah, and it really it's weird because you could see the battle in between this guy even through the rough kind of you know persona he puts on, which I think the writer does a great job with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why the prostitute and them have this long-term relationship because she has feelings for him, but he was with her sister. And I won't go into any further because it gets pretty crazy further on.
But it's if you like tragic emotional stories,
This is a good one.
not a single thing didn't make me gasp or start tearing
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I mean the whole relationship with Mama K, like even like every relationship she has with that, it
dude.
was like that she has with Kyler, where she's like a like that scene where they talk about her, she's just like she wants to hold him because he's this scared kid, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
She's like conflicted about that, and because this kid didn't have any parents.
Yeah.
So it is like his father figure is this assassin who beats him,
Yeah.
and then like
And she wants to show him affection, but she knows if she does, then it's going to jack up everything.
mm-hmm.
So you're thinking, okay, the writer's going to have her hug him. No.
Yeah, no, because she doesn't do it, and that's one of those things that I whenever it happens in the book, I'm like, how do you communicate that in a movie or TV show? Because what are you going to get her like staring at him, like just you give him the whole like no,
Yeah. I can't even think of a movieism that would work on that.
because it's such an important emotional thing, but that is entirely internal narration.
Yeah, yeah. And what's the craziest thing for me is how I was impacted by little things like that totally set up and explained further stuff that I was like, man, that was brilliant. I mean, because he technically, let's say take that out. You could have still told the story, but I loved it that he did stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just impacted more. I remembered stuff like that.
Yeah,
when he was having conflicts and he was having that, I'm like, what if she just would have hugged him?
Yeah, because
What would have changed? The whole thing would have changed.
Because you could say like, well, story wise, it's not important to know that internal bit. It kind of is, because that's this world
Yeah.
where it's just so many people are just like, I want to do these things, and that's sort of the recurring plot is I want this, but I can't risk having it.
Yeah.
So that would be a thing where it's like, oh, they cut that out in the movie. Oh, that would have been nice to know.
Yeah, and what's crazy is then in the end, you think, I was constantly thinking, what if this person would have made that choice? Because it ended up. Didn't matter. Yeah, I mean, that's what it was amazing to me. That when a book has me thinking like that, I know that I like it.
Yeah, when you're already being like, what if this character did something instead of what if they wrote this scene differently?
Exactly.
You're already like, why? Oh,
Exactly.
Oh, Kyler, if only you.
Yeah.
Because I was, there is there's a lot of romances going on.
Yeah.
The main one I thought was, again, pretty generic on the surface, but I thought it was pulled off so well that I am right there, and I'm like, oh no, he didn't know about that. And like, oh, they have feelings for each other. And I'm like, but things cannot be, and
it's I mean, if you're definitely into books like that, I would definitely read this or listen to it. I think it's great. You'll enjoy all the twists and different things like that. Like I loved, just like you said about the characters, it's like towards the end I'm thinking, crap. It really?
something
After all that, when all you had to do is be cool that one time 20 years ago? What the hell? Dude, I found myself doing that in my car.
Yeah.
Going, are you serious? Are you serious? Oh, it's great. Now the only problem, and it's just strictly me, with the graphic audio, is the little kid guy. He becomes an assassin, and he drops him off at more of an elite kind of royalty to learn that side of the world.
Yeah. Which I think that's when you get like, there was a time skip, which I found that out like as the story went, because the voice actor changes.
Well, that's what kind of bug. I understand it. I understand now he's this educated guy, but I just couldn't get over just the, oh, governor, and hello, I like to say,
Yeah.
I was like, and it wasn't even that deep. It was more like all I like to do is do this and that. That's what I'd like to do. I'm going to kill you, and this is how I'm going to do it. I couldn't. That was the part that.
That's it was it. I agree with you to the point where I assume that is not what the writer did. I assume that's because there's no way with all this writing. I'm like, somebody forgot to enter this scene when they sent it into Audible.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that is a crazy wild shift.
And what's cool about it, what's different about it is that, and I don't know if you picked this up around, maybe even that I'm wrong, but the main guy, the wet boy, that's the top wet boy, I don't know if he went through that same training. I think he sent him to it because
he's infiltrating like this thing.
Yeah, and I think it's all part of his plan to do what he was planning in the end, because he wasn't. I'm not saying he wasn't educated, but what I'm saying he
couldn't fit in.
Yeah, and he was always behind the shadows and acting like a merchant, or acting here to get here, there to get there, not starting him at the upper echelon so he would blend in. He put him in a place where he would eventually be a duke. So he could blend in with all these political people. And then, think about how crazy that is. Here's this duke that is blending in with everybody, but he's an unknown duke, but really he's a wet boy. Yeah. The power behind that was it was a pretty thought out process, I think. Because even looking at those processes and how those things are done makes sense. He does a good job at that, where you're not putting holes in it. Like, really? Well, that wouldn't. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, because he had something to gain by having him as an apprentice. Right. And he mentions, like, did you think this? I would have taken you in if I didn't know these things about you. Yeah. And I didn't have a use for you.
Oh, that blew my mind. Yeah, because the first part of it seems so natural, and then you're like, that's why he didn't kill him. Because I'm like, wait. That guy didn't kill him. He said he was going to kill him without evidence. He comes back and he didn't kill him. What's up with that?
And then you find out there's another side of him that's like, what? You find out there's a reason why he took him in the first place, and there's a reason why he thinks he shouldn't have taken him in at all.
Yes.
And so many things go on with it that that's pretty much all we can go into without spoilers. Yes. Outside of him, he becomes friends with Logan, who's this royalty guy that he's, Kyler is a much better fighter than him because he actually fights. But they had a very believable every friendship, every relationship was very believable in this.
Yeah, I agree.
That might, I don't know what else there's to talk about without spoilers. We might have to take an intermission too.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, you can move on to the next. You want to take an intermission?
Yeah, we're going to take a quick intermission.
Quick, I need to fill my beaker. Be right back.
Okay, so now we're in full spoiler territory.
Yes.
If you're interested in the book, go ahead and check it out. My rating for this could not be higher if you were curious.
Yeah. No, and like I said, there's so much in it that is just really good.
Yeah.
You can't do the dishes. You got to if you're walking or doing something, because it's intense. And with the graphic audio, with all the stuff that's going on, it really, some aspects really intensifies and just makes it work really well.
I haven't thought about it until you started to. There's books that you can passively listen to, and then there's ones where it's like, this is an experience this is like a theater.
Yeah. And
there's some that are, this is a show you have on in the background. Yeah. This is a theater
movie in your mind.
Yes. It's all coming together now. It doesn't make, because there are times where I'm like, I'm driving, I don't want to get into this book right now.
Yeah.
And I want to get into this one because I'll be more free. If I'm going to clean my room, which I do all the time, by the way, then I can put on maybe a little more fun book that I'm like, I want to check in on that world.
Yeah. Yeah. And some books I'll know right away okay, I gotta pay attention because sometimes, and like Cody can be a witness, I'll listen to books multiple times because I'm just okay. It just bugs me. I'm thinking about it and I'm going, okay, what did I miss? What did I miss? Why do I feel this way about it? Did I miss something in it? And I'll go back, and give it another chance because I capture new things, right? So for me, a book like this, I automatically switched gears. I knew right when listening to the first chapter, I'm like, okay, I got to pay attention. This is going to be more of an epic adventure and it's weird because I never looked at it as a cliche aspect of it, that I knew where it was going to go. I just looked at it as I want to pay attention. I want to make sure I know what's going on.
And because I'm thinking, because I like listening to books while I do Uber and stuff.
Yeah.
Like Uber Eats. And this was one where it's like, I don't even want to do that because I have to I have to pause it. And there would be huge climactic fights. Then I'm like, I don't want to have to like go to a restaurant, like leave for another 10 minutes to find out what happens. So it was like, I need to just have I need to know I'm going to be able to listen for 3 hours straight with no interruptions. It's so cinematic. Unless now I know beforehand, I can pause here. I can pause here.
Yes.
I can pause here. But if I have to pause in the middle of one of those fight scenes, it takes me out of it.
Or anything that's happening sometimes in this book.
Yeah, because every time two side characters talk, and I'm like, oh, that was so emotional. That was so tragic. We also, and this is, the premise of the story, but it is, until he goes to, this, magic school tournament thing.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have a fight, and he needs to win because he's being paid to win because of an organization. Political intrigue is happening. And they explain how magic even works at all. Yeah.
It like I said, they did a great job at that. Mm-hmm. I think he did good.
You could easily see it being oh, they go to this magic expert. All they do is explain to him exactly how magic works. But it feels so natural, it doesn't even come across as this is the part where you get exposition.
I know this is not this book, but part 2 of this book, there is a scene where a cleric takes out this poison arrow out of him that would blow your mind. Yeah, it's where they talk about this mist and sparks, and he pulls it out, and the poison accumulates itself on the shaft as crystal as they're removing the arrow. And I thought, oh my goodness. And that a cleric himself can't give himself pain relief. So it's like the wound healing. He's feeling all the pain of it healing, like if it healed for 3 weeks all at once.
I like when stuff does that.
Really, really cool. And how the women clerics can actually use pain relief, but the men clerics can't. But just that scene alone, I was thinking about this book. I was thinking, dude, I mean, it's a really good book.
It does remind me of a quick little thing about Goblin Slayer. Is there's a scene in the 5th book or something where someone gets hit with an arrow, and they have a healer, and they're like, "Can you heal the thing? You need to take the arrow out first." Don't you have a spell to remove arrows? What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. You want me to magically remove an arrow? No, you need to. I thought that.
Oh, that's great.
Anytime someone brings in no, I can't make that magically disappear. Yeah. I can heal the wound.
Right. I just can't take out the arrow. Yeah. Just take it out.
But
we're in the spoiler section.
So, and this is part of the premise, which is this character. He finds out he has a lot of magic potential.
Yes.
But he can never use it. It's oh yeah, you're whatever. And I loved all the descriptions about everyone has this. Oh, the part where they explain that oh yeah, everyone has this conduit for magic, and a lot of people use it without realizing it.
Yes.
A lot of people have a baseline, and so when they talk about someone's able to lift a wagon to save their kid, what they're really doing is tapping into their lifetime supply of the magic they had.
Yeah,
to do that one feat. And I liked playing with that adrenaline thing and all. It's
yeah, it's kind of like us.
Yeah, yeah, and it's we are kind of magical.
Yeah,
but I thought that was cool. That that sports celebrity, that athlete, he can tap into this baseline amount, and he'll run out of it eventually. But true mages have this huge supply. You have a huge amount, but it's broken.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I like that too, because it wasn't he doesn't go and discover, oh, did you know you're the most powerful wizard in the world?
Yeah.
They go, you would be, but what we call they have a term for it, but basically say, yeah, you at least you know you have a lot
Yeah.
of magic inside you.
Yeah, that's good to know.
And they talk, it's just something you're going to have to, and there's no cure. If there
Yeah.
was, we would have found it by now, because this, like, you would be the most powerful thing in the world. So just accept this about yourself and move
Yeah.
on. That's the only way to handle this.
Yeah.
I thought it was it's just such a cool thing in general.
Yeah. You could be Wolverine, but you can't use it.
Yeah. You would be,
Yeah, you would be insane.
which has, its own
Yeah.
payoff later about that.
Yeah. And so our main character, he now is older, full web boy. But the girl that he wasn't supposed to see, right?
He secretly, like,
He
stalks
secretly
and follows.
stalks her
and
gives her money and
he's
supports her, puts her in with the family, all these different things that she has no idea about, which is totally against what he's been taught. And if the main dude finds out, then there was no I'm gonna get punished. There was he's gonna kill me. Mm-hmm. There was no like, oh, he's gonna banish me. No, he's gonna kill you.
And, in my head, I'm like, oh, maybe he'll be like, that's okay. But he does find out. And what happens is he gets beaten severely.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to, like, the assassin at, like, a bar drinking. And it was this very, like, he beat his kid and now he's drinking at a bar feeling and stuff. But he was also like, I told him I would kill him if he did it.
But then there's reasons why. Mm-hmm. And you think, okay, this guy's going back on his word. And you start thinking, oh, I like how the writer's putting his kindness in there. It has nothing to do with that now that we're in the spoilers. Absolutely nothing. It doesn't. He does care for the kid, but it's only for his own needs.
Yes. And he mentions, like, passively, like, one of us is going to have to die.
Yes.
Either I die or he dies, and you don't even know why until way later, because he knew about this prophecy since the beginning.
Yep.
And he's like, I took you in because I knew you had all this magic potential. I took you into this, and like at one point they're fighting over the assassin's sword, and he goes like, no, it's mine, and like the sword starts leaking this like magical stuff, and I mean this is another one of those books where I wish people stayed alive more.
That's true. But they did such a good job with all the characters involved and did a good job on the main ones running through the storyline.
Yeah, Logan was like such a cool guy. I fell for him as a character immediately. I even liked how they handled an arranged marriage he was in. I liked how they handled the marriage he was going to be in.
That was great.
I love that it was like people like talking.
That was great.
And this thing where he's just like, I could see people maybe viewing it as like trashy, but it was this thing of like, well, this person grew up like obviously you idolized royalty. Yeah. And like he was just like, no, I don't want any of that. Like we can like talk, we can do all this, and how she's just like, this is what I was trained to do.
Yeah.
I was like raised to do this, and then like I was going to be sold to some 60-year-old man. And when they talk about the arranged marriages and royalty, I thought it was beautiful that like that queen from that other kingdom, her story is what I would tell to people, because I was like, that was such a beautiful tragic story.
Yeah.
And that's like on it as a short story that works on its own.
And he does a lot of that. He does a lot of those little short stories that you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But it's to build the character. But then again, like I said, I was thinking a certain way in the book. I'm like thinking, oh, this is going to be a story about here's this guy and raises this kid, but cares for him. And then you're like, it's all crap. It's all crap. And in his end, he knows about this kid. He knows the prophecy. He knows what's going to happen. And he knows he's the only one that can get that mystical item that he has back to life. Mm-hmm. Because the mystical item that he had is no longer functioning for him.
It abandoned him.
Because he's so kind of dark, and they kind of get into it where he kind of lost it. It decided there's no balance between mercy and killing, and he kind of lost that ability to do that, and so his only way to get it back is through this kid.
And he gets like trapped by like this other kingdom, who's like, you know, you find out he had something he didn't even know he had.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, because he says like, you know, if you have any connections, they'll use it against you, and it immediately gets used against him to the point where he's like, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this is like, oh, he wasn't joking about that either. Like, because he was, you know, he would know more than anyone, as it turns out, that, you know, if you're one of the best persons at killing people, if anyone gets leverage over you,
Yeah.
it will change kingdoms.
Yeah, which totally happened in the book, where he's forced, where he has to like take out his teacher. Which then again, the author set up all these things in the beginning where you're thinking, this guy is freaking badass. I mean, this guy is ridiculous. Hundreds of years of learning how to kill people.
I'll mention that, like, 3 people dropped, where he, like, within like a second, and it's not, he doesn't fight people, he kills them.
Yeah, in the book they talk about, which I drew when you're gonna see our little thumbnail. I have this knife, and it has 3 notches in it. Remember that knife? And the notches are poison, that are soaked with poison. That I mean, this guy was just insane.
The most cinematic scene was when, like, they're going to fight each other, and then Durzo pulls out the hook blades, and like Kyler just goes, "I hate those things." Like, that's such a movie line shot of him.
Well, that whole scene. I mean, we're spoilers now, right? So
we're in spoilers.
We're in spoilers. So there's this scene where and it's similar to a book that maybe we'll go over, but and it is a book about assassins, and it's called I'll get the name.
Heroes Die.
No, that's a good book too. That's a good book too. But there's a scene where they're in this hallway, and this is the book that we're talking about, and it's smoky. Now, these are assassins, so they're both clinging to the roof with their weapons ready, watching and listening and waiting for the one person to upset the fog that's going over. That was just sick.
Yeah, such a tense.
So I was sitting there going, I was like, really, dude?
This is one of those books too where you spent the whole book so you could understand how to appreciate the climax of it.
Yeah.
Like, all these little things, every little bit of training he got was so when you get this fight scene, it's like every little quirk that was mentioned. Oh, he chews garlic to calm down. He does this.
Yeah.
He does this. Like, every bit of the story has built up to this happening.
Yeah, and it's great because in between those things, like I said, they don't dwell too much on it, but, you know, they'll talk about stuff. Oh, that root does X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if everything that they talked about they used. It was almost like a matter of fact. Like, you were walking by, oh, that's...
Yeah,
you know.
it's like, like way in the beginning, like, oh, this poison does this. And that poison's used later. Like, oh, like, he's good at doing this. He's good at this. Like, oh, here's your weakness. You need to do this. And then come to the fight scene every little bit.
And it was great because in the end, you know, the artifact chose him. And what was cool about that is how he would balance out how the main guy should have been, with mercy and with justice. And so when he poisons Mama, I was like, brutal. But then he gives her the antidote. Which
I remember seeing that was a tactic that was used. Whereas, like, they would, like back in the day.
Interesting.
You would have assassins be like, I poisoned your... And I don't... You can see this on, like, spy stuff. But I poisoned your thing. Here's the antidote.
Tell me what you need to know, or I'm going to let you die.
Yeah. And so, like, that was a classic move back in the day.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's interesting. But even this Mama character, you totally loved. I mean, she had her edges, but you were like, oh, cool. And then it turned out really...
And...
that whole part Yeah. I mean, the main explosion, you know, is the fact that, you know, when he kills the guy, what I loved in that fight scene, one of the most things I loved is when he cuts him and he's poisoned and he's dying, but he reaches up and there is a blowgun needle in his neck or side.
And they're like, I guess we're both going to die here.
And he's like, no, it's not poison. I just want to let you know I could kill you. I could have killed you.
What? Yeah.
I could have killed you.
He's like, I knew this was my destiny. This was like the prophecy. It was going to be one of us. And it is this thing where it's like everything. At the end of the day, he was like, I couldn't bring myself to kill you. And then the tragedy where he's like, and I wrote you this letter. But they fought in the rain. And it's so quick. It's not dwelled on because Kyler just looks at it and goes like, it's too wet from the rain. I can't read it. Anything he had to tell me, I'll never know. And it's just over.
That was pretty crazy.
I was just like,
I was like, what? Because you're expecting them to do the movieism. You're expecting
dear Kyler, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you as a father. And he's just like, I can't.
I mean, when he tells him that, or hints to him that he's the one that cut up the girl. Oh my!
Right before they fight,
dude.
He's just like, "Who do you think cut her up?"
Oh my gosh! I was like,
"That's the part that I gasped and I went, no,
I did
Durzo!"
Too. I did. I swear. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like,
"He's like, I needed you to be strong. You needed to be tough and lose your connections." And I was like, it makes sense because he said, "I'll find someone to heal you." So it was like, oh, he must have had that ready, and then. And then they fight to the death, and then he talks to Doll Girl at the end. He's like, "You never told me who cut you up." She's like, "It was the gang leader."
Yeah,
and I was like, "No."
I know.
Just every part hit me. He's like, he lied about it.
I know. And then it's like, why'd you lie about it? But he had to lie about it. I mean, dude, it was
like,
so crazy.
Because he needed him to be strong enough to kill him because it had to be one of them.
He had to make him angry
because they had his daughter hostage.
Yes. And that whole part with his daughter was nuts. So it's like he was with the sister, but really loved.
He loved Mama K.
He loved Mama K, and Mama K loved him, but she thought that he loved his sister. Oh, it was great. That whole part was great.
The most freaking sad I have ever been at the end, because it's not just one thing happens. Everything happens to every character. Yeah. Mama K goes like, wait, he loved me? Everything.
Oh, that was brutal.
She's like, I betrayed him because I thought he was...
Could you imagine? And then it's crazy that she didn't pick to die. I thought she was. Because, I mean, in the end, dude, you know that you killed the guy that loved you because you didn't think he loved you.
And she told him, "Oh, you had a kid with my sister, and we didn't tell you because we thought you wouldn't be responsible." And then it's like, "Oh, that wasn't your sister. That wasn't my sister's kid. It was mine."
Oh, dude, I know, dude. Oh, that part was so bad.
It is
the only thing that I didn't like about that was the main characters. I mean, yeah, he was impacted, but I thought they would make the impact being felt so much more with all the other characters, and in that process, I don't think that it impacted him.
The main character is sort of the observer of the tragedy.
Yeah,
because his tragedy is with Doll Girl, which is a much lighter, like, can they romance. But you're having like this big climactic emotional.
Oh, dude.
If only I knew, and if he knew this, he wouldn't have done that. And if I knew that, like we could basically like just like this character like realizing like I could have had a happy life.
Oh yeah, yeah. Something that I was always trying to do, and I could have.
But we just never talked.
But we never communicated. Kind of like a marriage.
Kind of like.
Yeah.
And it's like, I came here for magical fights.
Yeah. No, but it's so, to me, I think that's what I mean. I mean, he lines up all these dominoes and they all just, in the end, even though they don't match and they're chaotic and they're emotional, it's like they all fall in place. And you didn't see it coming. I didn't see some of those things coming. Not at all. They were not laid in. They were not set up. But then looking at it, they were. I just didn't catch it.
Yeah, this is one of. I mean, I'm gonna try to find merch for this author because this is everything he did was amazing.
Well, that's why I started second right away. I was like, dude, it's a little more up until what I'm reading. It's kind of laying out the political aspect, but now I'm ready. See, now I'm just like, okay, I'm paying attention. All right, what's going on with that? What's going on with that? But yeah.
So, do you want to cut back to being spoiler free, and we could have had a little timestamp back there?
It's up to you.
Because I don't know. But the only thing is, I guess it's spoilers to talk about the new powers he gets, which is Venom like in the sense of like.
Well, now he can actually physically disappear. He physically turn invisible.
He can heal.
Yeah.
He has which I think being able to heal is a great power for the protagonist in a story, because they get to get injured.
Yes and no. I think it's the way that whoever is developing, writing, doing a movie or whatever, it depends on how they do it. You take a character like Deadpool or Wolverine, you blow holes in them and they just grow back, you chop off their head or whatever. That's cool the first time it happens, and then you get the Superman aspect. Towards the end of the movie, like, why am I even watching this guy? He could be ripped in half by the Hulk and then grow back together. Stupid.
Yeah.
Right? So Deadpool, I kind of like the fact that, you blow off his arm and it takes weeks to grow back. See, I think it has to, with any power, I think they should give it a limitability.
Yeah. And this does something that I like, which he gets tortured still, and he's like, why isn't it kicking in? And it is like, that's why this was pitched to me as Venom style powers. I really like the way it works in Venom, because there's like multiple levels of healing. So like he can like instantly recover from small stuff, but like big stuff, there's like a scene in Agent Venom where he gets his stomach like ripped open and his guts like fall out, but the symbiote starts like, it grabs his stomach, all the guts, and puts them back in. And he mentions like, that was it. Like the symbiote put everything it had into doing that. So now like he can't get hit again. And then it's like, but if he gets a limb blown off, it can't replace it. Like it can replace it, but it can't grow it back for him.
Yeah, see, that's cool. I mean, I hate to say realistic in a fantasy aspect, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, where there are like, the conservation of mass is something I look for in any story. So with healing, it is like that goo thing that's in him. It can do it.
And they didn't go crazy in this book. I mean, they didn't like, he had his, arm ripped off or anything.
Yeah, no, he gets cut up, and normally that would have been it for him. But this is able to push him just enough to be able to get out.
Right. And now he has these powers, and now he's like lethal.
Yes, because now, and then like he can he just jumps out, like when he gets framed for murder for a king, and he just jumps out, and they're like, oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the whole time that he has his powers, the only reason, what's his name was training him is so that he could steal it from him, because he had lost those powers. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting, and it's cool because that story could have went either way. I mean, you look at it, when you look back at it, you're thinking, like I said, what if this person did this? Mm-hmm. I think it was great.
Yeah, and like stuff with the afterlife it goes into, I was like, this is so much. The climax was so full.
Yes.
And it was soulful.
Oh, dude. That's when you find out about the Mama K and everything else like that, and you're just like, dude. I mean, I honestly, after that point and after that, I had to pause it. I did. I paused it right when he left her. I went, okay, I gotta absorb this, dude.
Yeah,
I gotta absorb this, because that was rough. And then I paused it for, I think I picked it up the next day. Not that I was like all blubber. It's not that. It's just, it's powerful.
Yeah, you don't want to move on. You want to let that sit with you for a bit.
Yeah, because then I was afraid with the graphic novel. I was afraid that the very next scene he'd be in a circus or something, and it would totally just jack it up for me. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to actually just kind of live in that moment for a little bit and enjoy what the people that did the audiobook and also the writer, wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was absolutely a thing where you would like finish that chapter and you'd be like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I will read the
Yeah.
rest of it. I want to read more of it, and I will as soon as my mind has understood everything that has happened.
Yeah, because I mean, there's like, 3 different betrayals, 3 different lies, mystical betrayal. It's like crazy.
We got like a tragic story as like an afterthought between these like side characters that I had to process.
Yeah, yeah.
And that whole thing with Logan, and like when they talked about how like he's talking to another, like the queen of another kingdom, and she's like, I'm sorry you were sold into this marriage. I was sold into a marriage.
Yeah.
I was in love with your father, and he got sold off to this other kingdom.
That's right.
I got sold to this other kingdom. I know how much my father sold me for. It wasn't even that much. And me and your father, we were in love. We were going to get married. We talked about our kid's name, and we were going to name our son Logan. And it was just, I was just like, stop doing this to me.
I know.
But that was
great.
I was just like, and then they're not like main characters.
No, and they're not main characters, but it's like, it's weird. They all fit in the same puzzle.
Mm-hmm. It's all this story. Everybody has their own thing going on.
Yeah.
And with Logan getting and I like to like something happens at this like royal thing, and all these people are being assassinated and killed, and then it's like Logan is now the prince because he just got sold off, and and then the king is going crazy. Like his bodyguard just like kills him and goes like, all right, well Logan's the king, so we have to do what he says now.
Yeah.
And like all the guards are like, all right, good. And
yeah, that was crazy.
And then Logan is like, we're gonna, he gets something terrible is gonna happen to him. And then like a guy like reveals it like, I've been working for Mama K the whole time.
I know.
And then like they're at that prison where like
the prison's brutal.
A rope made out of it, like, because we see like he like pushes someone else into the pit, and they just mention like he's getting like ripped apart. They hear noises.
Yeah, it's a deep pit.
Awful things are happening to that guy that fell in, and then this guy was like, all right, let's get out of here, you and me. And then like a rope made out of intestines like slowly pulls him into the pit. And I was like, no, not you. And then Logan's like, I don't know where else to go. I'm gonna have to go into the pit.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, and that part was just surreal for me, the pit, because I can imagine it. The whole mouth and crazy.
And he talks about how like this guy, when he's in the pit, like this guy looks like he's in shape, which means he's been eating something. They don't feed him enough for him to look like this.
In the second book, they go into more of the cannibalism aspect of it, where there's three different groups down there. There's beast, monsters, and then the scared. And there's a scene in the second book where this guy throws a dude into the pit, and they're pissed, not because he threw the dude in the pit, but that was good meat that he threw down. And then they bring in this guard character that has loaves of bread, and you're like, okay, they get fed. And he throws the loaves of bread into the pit while he's laughing, and they try to catch the bread, and they fall in the pit, and then he just walks away and closes it. No food. Yeah, it's pretty intense, which made me even hate the pit even more. But it was actually pretty intense.
Yeah, I mean I think we've covered every bit about this story.
I think we have.
We haven't talked about like the fight scenes too much, which is crazy because this has some of the best fight scenes I've seen.
It does.
But like, so where they talk about like, oh, this is witch fire. Oh, by the way, there's a character who can see the future, and he's like kind of guiding events.
Yeah.
And they mention. He talks about it's not like absolute, and then also every time I use it, I go a little crazy, so I don't want to do it too much.
Oh my gosh, that part was nuts when they start explaining how in the end, this guy will eventually just have, 10 minutes of being lucid.
Yeah,
and then the rest of the time, maybe once a year, and the rest of the time he's going to be out of his mind. And then sometimes there'll be people there. He'll become that way when no one's there to talk to. Sadder than anything.
And he's like a nice person. Because he is just like, You know, it's like not only like I know doing this will help you, and it's going to like make me lose my mind even more, and I'm going to make that sacrifice for you.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, man, I totally forgot about that too.
Just all the fight scenes with like witch fire, which I think is green, because I've seen some drawings, and I've seen something else where like witch fire is green for some reason. And you see them fighting, and like him like getting out of holds and being like, there's no way he's gonna get out of this one. The romance he has with Doll Girl, where she's like, I wrote you letters every day. Well, she didn't even tell him that. He finds out that, and then Durza was keeping them from him. And she's like, every day. And then he's like, well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna read the last letter, which is totally a video game thing. Well, you like multiple logs. Let me click the last one because that's where the information's gonna be. But he's like. Man, he reads the last one. He's like, and I wrote you. I'm sorry for that message. I wrote you earlier. He's like, well, what'd you write me earlier? I love you. He's like, no, she doesn't even know who I am, and she loves me. She thinks I ignored her and all this stuff. And and they've both been pining for each other for years, and they've never like moved on to anyone else.
And it's funny. That's a normal thing in this book, I think, where the communication f's it up in a lot of these relationships. So I think maybe he was married and then now he's not, and maybe puts those anti-communication levels into books. How maybe he should have communicated.
It's too real.
but he didn't. So now I got a poison dart in my neck. I don't know how that works, but a lot of the characters, and you see that, but it's not old. It's not like a thing where oh really. I mean, it's just really good. I would definitely listen to this book. And I think you would even get more, you would also get the same benefit from actually reading it, I think. But it's a book that you really just gotta shut everything out. I think, especially if you're reading it, you gotta just shut everything out and take your time and enjoy how he lays everything out. I'm interested to see what would have been cut out of it.
Yeah, because they describe a lot that I'm like, I think stuff like that got cut out of Deathlands.
Yes, it did. So I mean, for me, I think I recommend it. I think even if you already heard us talking about it and you've already read it, maybe it'll spur you to listen to the graphic version, the audio version, because you'll enjoy it, especially if you've already read it. Mm-hmm. Because then you're gonna feel that character. You're gonna feel that assassin. You're gonna hear his voice. You're gonna hear him explain those things. Explain the different rooms. The one with weapons. The one with chemicals. The one with
all the music that plays during fights. And you get to hear the fire. You get to hear and then he disappeared in the shadows.
Oh yeah, dude. I think for me it would be great. I mean that's why, like with Deathlands, I've read all the Deathlands. So when they came out with the audiobooks, I was really excited, because then all of a sudden the characters in my mind that came off the book now are going to be in audio.
Yeah, I think the best way to go, I just couldn't help myself, but yeah, it's usually find the unabridged audiobook, listen to that, and then if you find out graphic audio is, enjoy that, and then you'll know, because anytime I've done that, I notice graphic audio cut stuff out. Sometimes it'll be a scene I was really looking forward to. Sometimes it'll be like, why'd they cut that scene out? So you never know. So it's like, I love this. It's my favorite, and I don't know what I've missed.
Yeah, and like I said, in the end, it's like, my ignorance is my strength. I mean, if you just want to listen to the audio, you won't even know the difference, because it's standalone good the way it is, whether I knew what was in it or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think another highly recommended for me.
Yeah, this is a book that I'm like, especially for people that like, you're like, because I'm like going through books to see like how everyone writes their stories, and I'm going through it, and this is definitely one to show people like, if you're worried about a story being generic, it's like, oh yeah, he has the mentor that dies at the end, he has this, and then you can see someone take all of these things and make it such a unique, enjoyable world that it doesn't matter. And I see that every now and then. I'll see a story that's like that. I should be looking at it and be like, what a generic
story
totally
I've seen.
Should.
Totally should. It's it's the Jedi Apprentice. It's a Sword in the Stone. I mean, it's so much of that. Oh, the apprentice, and then he's gonna beat the shit out of him.
He has the love interest. He doesn't talk.
And he's got to build himself up. I mean, all that stuff.
I mean, yeah, black best friends.
Oh yeah, but it takes that and just rams some other story down your throat, and in the end, you're going, what the f? It was nothing that I was thinking, absolutely nothing. But then in your head, you're going, oh, I see it. I see how they did this and this, and this person did this to fool this person, and that.
And it feels real. It's not.
And it feels real.
You're not going like, oh, he wrote this.
No.
It's not a. It is a threshold a lot of books have to cross. Some books don't manage to do it, but it is.
Yeah.
It is a thing where I'll be like, oh my god, I forgot that this isn't happening.
And it wasn't like a, Darth Vader thing. It wasn't like, Luke, I am your son, or I'm your father.
Anyway, you got it wrong.
I did, but it's not like that. He pulls it off where it's real. It's not like he's trying to just throw the shock, like soap opera thing at you.
Oh, I mean, like in regards to the reveal with Durz, like the fake reveal with Durzo, it was like that was a very like an I am your father, like I did the thing twist.
Yeah.
But I'm like no, but it's like I'm like, but then like later on I'm like that is a thing that happens with mentor stories, enough for me that I should have seen something like that coming.
Yeah,
but I was just so in it.
But it's like almost like. It's like almost the author gave it to you as a softball, just to say you're wrong over here.
Yeah, just be like, oh, that twist, by the way.
Yeah, no.
Not only that, but taking away that twist makes it even worse for you.
Exactly. When he says, "Oh, it wasn't him in the end," then I feel like a dick for thinking it was him.
Yeah.
When I found that out, I went, "Oh man, really?" I really did. I was like, "Oh," because when that I freaking. Okay, this guy needs to die.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh shit.
I'm like, no.
No, really?
Oh no, he actually
he did that because he wanted him to get angry to kill him and sacrifice himself, and in the end it made sense. It was believable. He already knew that he was older and he was accepting it.
I like that too, where he's talking about I used to be immortal and now I can feel I'm starting to get slower.
Yeah.
I can feel like my time is coming to an end. Because, I'm not that old, but I am old. I've lived for 700 years, but physically I'm not that old, but I'm slowing down just enough for it to start mattering.
Right.
And I also, you were talking about how, it makes sense, because it is when he went, I'm the one who did it. I was like, that makes sense, because he was there when she got there. Yeah. But then I was also, and then he's like, no, he didn't do it. And I was like, oh right, yeah, no, he wouldn't have, because he did need to go find a healer, and he did need to do all this stuff, and so it was both reveals. That makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, like when he said he, did her face and stuff, you're like, oh wow, and I started thinking, okay, oh that makes sense, because he's the one that cut her up so that he would go kill him, because he had to have him kill him. Mm-hmm. And he orchestrated this whole thing, and it made sense in my mind, and it made sense in how he wrote it. So it was believable. I bought it.
And then
hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. And
then to find out no, and you're going, okay, I buy that too.
Yeah, because that makes sense. Because and then so we saw him in this position. He was like. Because also he's like, I'll give you a week, and then he's like, you have 5 days to do. Yeah. So it was like, oh yeah, he's right. That doesn't make sense for him to do that before the week is up, because he told him these conditions. Yeah,
it was amazing, and if you guys, of course, have read it or listened, definitely send comments, because
let us know if there's anything we missed, because if there is, if it turns out that this does skip a couple things, I might have to just get the unabridged audiobook too.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know if we missed something. I don't think so, but I think if you read this book and you like it, we're in the same boat, because I think it's a really well done book that takes you down different roads that I didn't expect. I really didn't expect. So.
Yeah. And That's everything I can think of.
I think that's everything for me. So, like for me, I'll probably, out of 1 to 5, I'll probably give it what was the sword that he used? What was that called? The black.
I don't remember.
Oh, because that would have been cool.
I'll give it. You know what? You're right. Because everything we've done, like, yeah, it's like 5 out of 5. That's if I like something, I like it.
Yeah.
I'll give it 5 out of 5 black orbs.
Yeah, me the same. Probably 5 out of 5 black orbs. My only thing is that guy's voice. Even in the second book, I'm just stuck on. What are we gonna do it now? I'm gonna kill you now.
It doesn't feel like it fits.
It does not feel like an assassin.
Yeah.
At least with the other guy.
And with his background.
Yeah. You know, he goes, well, don't like this. What's up, governor? Yeah, I'm going to take you out. I'm going to take you out right now. And then I'll send to, yes. Oh, I don't know whether I should do it or not. That was my problem when I looked at it.
You're
and
right,
it has
yeah.
that.
It's too
it has
proper.
That, yes, it's a proper. And I just didn't know what to do with her. And but I figured I had to kill. It just didn't. That's the only. That maybe I should have given it a 4 out of 5 black orbs.
You can give it a 4.5.
I think I'll give it a 4.5.
I give it 4.5.
Yeah, because now that I'm saying it, it's really bugging me more.
I mean, and if nothing else, you jumped onto the second book immediately.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
if you're upset about the 0.5, he jumped onto it before I did.
Yeah, I mean, right when I saw it in the library,
Yeah.
I pulled the trigger, and I was listening to something else in between. So I was listening to Dungeon Carl.
Yeah, that is the funnest part if you share an Audible account. Because I can see him just be like, oh, he's reading 4 books right now.
Yeah.
It's just like jumping around.
And that's not the ones that I watch videos about on YouTube. Anyway.
Let's just say. He's also like, oh, yeah, I listen to 10 books right now. That's funny because it's not on the library.
Yes. Well, we appreciate all you guys. Definitely comment us. You know, we have a Discord going on. Love to see stuff. I'm actually putting some art up there pretty soon. With we also have a Patreon that will be probably moving digital art to you guys. And
this one in particular, Frank may have drawn a special little comic.
Yes, you're gonna like this one. That's pretty good. So, but definitely leave us some conversation, talk. If we missed something.
Comment anything.
Yeah, comment on anything.
Comment what the name of the sword was.
And what's cool about this is this was a fan choice.
Mm-hmm. And I loved it. And this is like, oh, this is cool for me because like I'm, it's like the idea of like I'm also finding out books I like by doing this. So,
oh yeah, and this is a fan choice, and I appreciate. Who is it there? Send it to us?
Super Kami Guru, if I remember correctly.
Totally appreciate it, man. We'd love to hear some other books out of your arsenal, because that's a home run, man.
Yeah, and which we have been getting recommended the Name of the Wind, lately, by multiple users.
I think the name is.
Okay, that was good. That was good. We've been recommending that. That's getting a TV show soon.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so we got to do that one.
Yeah, and Six of Crows is also something we might check out.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, comment anything, give a little thumbs up. You can subscribe if you wanted to. Go on Discord. He posts art. I just talk. I'm on there usually a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And make sure that we're going to be kind of starting a new intro, new exit. We're going to do live and hope you guys all come out. Might actually give out some art or things like that. Everything's going to be digital, so you don't got to worry about shipping. You could make it big, small, make a shirt, whatever you want to do with it. So, but until next time, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
That was good. How long was that?
I think that was an hour and 30.